Welcome back to Cool Club's headquarters here in Scottsdale. This is a bit of a different episode. We haven't had anything really graphite golf shaft based, so it's kind of exciting for us today. We're here with our CEO and founder, Mark Timms, and we're also greeted with JC Beeson from Velix Golf Shafts. And let's hear all about Velix. We want to know how you got into the industry and then about your products. So how did you start this?
Oof, I mean, we're going the real start.
Yeah, let's go all the way back.
Yeah, I enjoy telling that story because I'm around a lot of young athletes in tennis and golf, where I say, hey, my 8th grade science fair project was testing steel shafts against graphite shafts. I'm not going to tell you what year that was, but I probably still have that rig somewhere.
I've known you for about 20 years, so you're probably 30 now.
Yeah, I'm 30 now, correct?
Right.
My dad's an industrial engineer. We were a pretty good golf family, but more a sports family. I played college football, things like that. But yeah, we built a rig, and it was a pretty rough tripod that we welded together, and we used some spring-loaded things. And it was not a good golf swing. It was directly up and down. It was almost completely. Yeah, it was a bad golf swing, but it was similar to mine. We built on mine. No, yeah. So we in the 8th grade or whatever that is, 13 years old. I was testing steel shafts against graphite. The year before in the science fair, I did air pocket tennis shoes versus non and vertical. So I've always kind of had this, golf project.
You like science projects? Me too.
I do.
I still remember some of mine as well.
I was a kid.
Mostly blowing things up, but that's a whole different story.
I have a feeling. I mean, we probably relate it. I was the kid that was, whether it was whatever golf magazine, whatever tennis magazine, I'm taking the X-Acto knife and cutting out all the product reviews, and I've got them like hung on my desk, and and part of it was, I've got to have 845s. I've got to have 845. This is it. Like, right? I just read the review. This is definitely it. But I was also the one going, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Like, the things that you could kind of poke holes at in those different industries. But yeah, I've loved the sports equipment and performance industries. I was a decent junior golfer, but I was a better junior tennis player. I was lucky enough to go, full ride with tennis to college, and then play some really bad professional tennis. But I do get to put that on my resume. That we joke that my close friends joke that Andy Roddick kept ducking me, and it was like because he kept winning. If there was a pro losers bracket, he wouldn't have been able to escape me, but unfortunately there wasn't. So yeah, it started kind of early. I did venture off that path and went to law school and was bored to tears and said, yeah, that's not where I want to be. I want to be in golf. So I kind of went the hard path. Some small companies that I can't imagine are still around. Maybe they are, but some small component companies and kind of learning that part of the industry. Probably from the wrong end, right? Kind of.
You were with shaft companies before, though. Apache and Matrix and Fuji and all that stuff. And when did you decide to go on your own and do your own thing, and why?
Well, I think it was a progression. Where I was at Apache, then I was lucky enough to get a call from Fujikura, which was the big show. And again, I still talk about those guys fondly, and it's a great company. And as I kind of mentioned to you guys, I loved being there. Great ideas. Got to be in some of the ground floor with Speeder, and some just amazing products and amazing product launches and how they happen.
Yeah, well, Speeder was it, really. I mean, when I started, I had a store back in Connecticut before I moved here and started Hostics, and our number one shaft for at the time was 757 was the new thing, and that was the first real shaft that came out that was an aftermarket shaft. People started putting in clubs, and it kind of mushroomed from that. We had all kinds of stuff from AJ Techs and other things that started to become popular, and that was kind of the start of the aftermarket shaft era, basically.
Heck yeah, and to look back
Late
at
90s,
it now,
basically.
Yeah, look back at it now.
Yep.
Yeah, it was kind of early 2000s for me. Right around 2000, and to be able to be look back and say, wow, I was in on things that really broke ground, and we kind of talked about with Hot Sticks some of the things that you broke ground, and looking back at it now, like those were important moments in golf fitting history for sure.
Definitely a time when golf changed from
it did
being basically everything off the rack to starting to be customized, and the shafts got really interesting to people, and definitely all took off from there.
Oh yeah.
When did you start designing golf shafts?
With Fujikura, that just wasn't going to be something that I was going to do. It's a corporate entity. It's a big company. So Matrix shafts, which was called Apache at the time. While I was there at Fuji, they called and made me an offer. I'd kind of written some business plan stuff for them in the past, and they, weren't as strong a company at that time. We're kind of searching for direction, and it was something I said, yeah, this is what I'd like to do. Kind of went from being at lunch with Fujikura saying, gosh, what we should do? We should make this like this. And they're like, oh yeah, we could talk about that someday. It's not in the corporate design structure to saying, you know what, wait, with this, I might be able to go to lunch, have an idea, and come back and do it after lunch.
Well, in general, the Japanese companies in general, and no poke on them by any means, they're extremely organized and very thought out, and don't do anything quick necessarily, but do a very good job, and the quality and stuff is fantastic.
Heck yeah.
That's a little restraining a little bit if somebody wants to try all kinds of new stuff. So I could see you getting a little bit frustrated by that at some point in time.
Well, I'm also an early 20s idiot, right? So, their best decisions were probably not listening to me. That might have been
Right.
that might have been great for their success. Now I'm sure that they were doing just fine.
You went out on your own, started Velix. And what year was that?
Velix started in 2012, so I'd
about
done
10 years ago.
Matrix and Matrix Ozic. We'd had that success, and it was like, okay, I'm ready to do my own shop and do it a little bit differently. You guys kind of know when you get to a point of almost victim of your own success, right? Where it's the product does so well that it becomes everywhere. It's on every retail shelf, and it does become widgets and spreadsheets.
Yep.
And that's
It really does.
yeah, it does.
Not as much
And
fun for you, I wouldn't think.
No, that's just not.
So now you
what I
got
was going
Velix.
for. Yeah.
Fill us in on the different lines and how they are different, and who they're for, and the price points. And
Yeah, started Velix in 2012. Launched with the first iteration of Alpena.
which still exists, right?
It does. It does. I kind of, I like a little bit of the Elon Musk plan where it's like, yeah, he made Model 3, for instance, or the Model S.
Well, I love the Alpena name because I actually had a BMW Alpena I raced in college.
We draw a lot of stuff from,
It's long gone somewhere, but
good product, right? A good product. We draw a lot of some of our naming nomenclature from sports, from car culture, which we like, some music culture, and video game culture. So
I
there's
think a lot of golf comes from that.
Yeah, it does. It does. And we're I was lucky enough that was in the early years of that. I had some video game design students in my employ, and one they kept me young because they were 20 something and bumping around to electronic music and different things like that. And they brought some different design elements and video game elements, and I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of Easter eggs hidden in the shafts that are like, yeah, we've borrowed different things from a lot of different places, and for our fans, and we're lucky enough to have some fans. A lot of them get geeked out over. Wait, I know what that means.
So let's start with the Alpena line. Who is that for, and what range of weights and stuff and characteristics is that line shafts for?
When we started that, we knew we needed something for. I'm not going to say that the masses, because still we're talking high-end product and high-end golfer. I wanted to take on. There tends to be with most golf shaft companies, you shoot for some stars on some expensive items, and sometimes then it's like, oh, we also need that middle of the road, and sometimes that kind of gets. It's a margin play. It's we need to not nickel and dime because people like some really great.
It's your entry level.
It is.
Right? So it's
like
a lot of the bells and whistles, but not getting crazy expensive.
Yeah, and for me it was like, okay,
and what weights does that come in?
Alpena 573 is in the low 50s for wood shafts. The 673 is in the mid 60s. Iron shafts, which that does really really well.
Yeah.
473, which is sub 50 build, ends up target numbers about at 50, 51. So you get some lighter weights in that one, and that does. I'm really proud of that product. With the 673s and mid 60s iron shaft, which you need to have.
For irons, you have 50, 60?
50, 65, and then 80.
Okay.
So there's an 873 that's a little better player.
That's 90% of the graphic market.
Yeah,
at this point anyway.
Yeah, you knew you were going to do that, and then again, 50, low 50 grams wood shaft, mid 60s gram wood shafts. Like, okay, you're covering all the bases. Can I do it, in my opinion, better? Can I do it, cleaner and try to put some different, try to put some high-end materials and some things in a category that a lot of times doesn't. So we did use a lot more 40-ton, a lot more high modulus than you would in your.
Typically, you wouldn't see 40-ton material in any kind of value shaft.
Yeah,
Doesn't exist.
At the time, we got a little lucky with material supply, so we kind of like found a really great window, and it's like, yeah, there's some materials in here. My partners in this business are the tennis company Selenko Tennis, that's based in LA and in Korea, and so we had some material supply advantages that was just really lucky that you wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, people are surprised to know that there is a lot of the tennis companies, big ones out there. A lot of those are related to golf. It's the same sort of materials used and stuff, and many of the companies actually dabble in both of those.
It's fascinating too, because with golf, I mean, you hear, okay, I was at Fujikura, Matrix, and now Velix, and there's a lot of people that have similar stories where it's, we trade employees quite a bit, right? We were having lunch yesterday talking about like, oh yeah, this guy that does this, and now it's Toulon putters.
Yeah,
hi Sean. Where that happens. So there can be, you do run the risk of not getting as many new ideas because you're bringing everybody's bringing ideas from other places and they kind of stay in this circle. So it was fun dealing with the tennis industry because some of the things, especially in the string polymers, I never seen some of this stuff, and so they're doing things. I'm like. And they're doing it like it's just, well,
I'm sure you try a whole bunch of stuff, most of it doesn't work at all, and then you find something.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You have some of the stuff like, you don't know this. I'm like,
well, Xylon or something.
Yeah, a lot of the Xylon, some things where they were nickel anodizing carbon and doing some things like that, where I'm like, wow, this is fun material.
I just wanted to touch on the materials, actually. I saw that on your website. You got a bunch. So you got S-axis, 40-ton, and then you got multi, 11-inch anode tip, and then obviously like low resin. I just thought it's kind of fun for people to hear. They're on your website. It's an advertising point. What do they mean for the consumer? Like, what does the player get from using these different materials?
Yeah, we do very little through the website. We probably need to do a little bit more of educating our customers because that is a fun thing. I wanted to keep saying we're going to use premium materials. We're going to use premium materials. Sometimes to our detriment of the bottom line at times. Yeah, probably leave some things on the table, but using high modulus graphite is, I think for a lot of people, send it as a marker of what's quality and what's not. That's probably not completely fair, right? Because you can use good designs with a lot of different things, but we were able to use a lot of low resin count. So when you have high resin, every carbon graphite sheet that anybody uses for any shaft has a certain amount of resin. When you do cure the shaft, that resin runs out. It can leave pockets and different things in the shaft if there's a lot of resin to run out of the product. So when you can get low resin fiber and get it in a quality way that's been stored correctly and is used in the right amount of time, you can get a little better product bonding, and you cut them in half and do a cross section, and you can a lot of times actually see like, oh yeah, this is a kind of a well put together product. It's organized. It doesn't have as many just visible flaws and holes in some of the pockets.
So really, when you hear about resin, which people talk about a lot in golf shafts, but consumers don't really understand what that means. Resin is basically glue, right?
It's glue.
And essentially, when you talk about low resin is better, this, that, and the other. But basically, it is. The less resin or glue you have in the stuff, the more you get to use the fibers to actually do something.
Yeah.
So the more you can compress it and get as much of that out, make it even, the more consistent your shaft becomes, obviously, and lighter overall weight for the same strength. So resin part of it's really important, and people talk about it a lot, and I don't think a lot of consumers really understand what the low resin mean. What's the advantage of that? Well, it means there's more fibers in there that do something. And less waste, right?
Talking about how much glue ran out doesn't really
scream I'm
but that's
excited. That's essentially
from,
what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have as much little resin as possible without it coming apart. So
and that was
a big part of it.
When we even started, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this, there's a certain baseline. I'm not going to go past certain resin percentages, and it does make a better product. We feel like, and the cross sections do look better, and we wanted to do that even at a place where, again, still high-end product, but a place that's reachable for a lot more golfers that usually don't get that kind of material in that target range.
And then from your Alpena, which is your baseline stuff, which is better than most, obviously. You don't start at a real cheap shaft. You start in the middle kind of. And then you go up from that to your Rome shaft. Mm-hmm. Now, how is that different, and what sort of players is that for?
Well, I that was another thing with doing this on my own. I was like, I want to keep it, even now I want to make it that I'm making stuff for my friends, right? If I'm going to make something for my friends. So with a lot of the Rome series, and a little bit Arcane, but a lot of the Rome series, it was taking, my friends that are good golfers or high level golfers and saying, okay, what's the need here? I'm going to make this almost literally for them. Right. And I hope other people can benefit too. Yeah. So, our heaviest Rome 888 is flat out made from my friend Greeny, who an incredible player,
strong guy,
big tall guy, about a 6'5", heck of a basketball player, and an incredible golfer. And he's just like, can you do something to keep me from losing it left? Because on the wrong day it's left. Right. Sorry, Greeny. On the wrong day it's left off the planet. And he's like, what can we do? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to design for Greeny, and it's going to happen to fit in the Rome series, and we're going to call it 888. Right. Rome 688 was my friend that named Greg. That was built for him. He wants to play a 5-yard cut. He wants to go the heck after it, and again, heck of a player. And it was like, I'm building this for my friend, and it happens to fit in Rome line, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, we got to talk about something that's totally unrelated to performance and stuff, but your shafts look really cool. I mean, you spent a lot of money on the paint on these things. I mean, this is a purple one, obviously, that fades to green and stuff, and they're all IP. And we do our own shafts as well, and I know how expensive IP is, and multiple colors like this is expensive. And what ended up with going to the crazy colors and probably the nicest paint jobs of any shaft company I've seen. Also makes them the most expensive paint jobs.
I'm partial to it in that. Yeah, there's the trick and the luck of a smaller company. It's like, okay, I'm not trying to keep 4,000 people employed. And those are great funds.
And that does make sense too, because like I said, we use IP in ours, and there's a lot of waste. Things get scratched or dinged or whatever. So
just don't
on
make
a large scale, it's a very difficult thing to do.
It is, yeah. So you have to do small batches just by the nature of the way it goes.
So it kind of leads into
with this range. I mean, there were times where maybe even too far where I built a little bit of my reputation on how he makes great looking stuff, and I'm like, I'm not going to stop that. I want to make. Sometimes one thing a long time ago that I kind of wanted to bridge the gap of was between the look of sports equipment and a little bit of sex appeal, because our clients they're choosing their car in a certain way. They want to, that they're choosing their watch a certain way. They're choosing what they wear a certain way. When they get to first tee and pull stuff out of their bag, we've all been there. That's a fashion show, man. So it's our version of the fashion show. You say like women have shoes and purses. We've got
golf shops,
watch and driver, right? So I've always wanted it to be like, I want you to be proud of it.
I think it's really cool.
We had the young kid in the hitting bay yesterday where he's like, if it looks good, you're gonna hit it way better.
Yeah, it's gotta work.
It's true to a point, right? It's still got to work. So I've always said, hey, we're only gonna sell like the first one if it looks good and sucks once it gets on course. So it's got to perform. But it's something I did. With that rainbow IP, the real curse of it is it's actually IP'd silver first.
Okay,
and then goes to another place, which we call that Wonka Land. Right. We don't tell anybody where that place is.
Kind of like bluing on wedges and stuff we do. You kind of know what color is going to come out, sort of, but you never really know, right?
And you're right. And sometimes you get them like, they all exploded. Sometimes you get into like, they all turned a weird pastel that we weren't planning. Right. But when they come out right, you're like, I look at the bill and go, oh God, what are we doing? But then I look at them like, I have to have this. I have to have this. So, we've done some things in aesthetic design that way that it's like, okay, I'm going to use video game artists to kind of do some of the artwork and insert Easter eggs into all the graphic design. I want it to look crazy. There's even we look at something that's blue, and there's just some prototypes.
Yeah, I tell you what, I really do like this blue. This is Cool Club's blue, by the way.
Well, that's why I did. Obviously. But there's a way of doing a blue, and when you get these out in the sun, you kind of see some depth of color.
Yeah, you do miss a bit having it indoors here. It definitely looks better outside, especially the multicolored ones and how they changed and stuff.
Absolutely, and if you're going to multi-layer paint, which just screams this is going to be a little more expensive. Yep. And when we're doing a mass product, which I've done, all we need to do 800,000 shafts. Those are things that kind of get left on the cutting room floor because you just can't do that at that level. So. I always want to do like, okay, what's the way to make this look? It needs to pop when they take it out of the bag. I want them to be excited to show friends whatever the level of golfer is. I want there to be some pride in it and some, some sex appeal. It's
what's the price point? I don't know about exact prices, but what's the map pricing like Velix, the standard shafts, the Alpena stuff?
Yeah, Alpena
standard driver shafts sell for approximately. I'll do the numbers.
It's sub $200 for a standard Alpena with matte black, which is like, okay, everybody went through a real hot matte black, and even then I was like, I want to do a soft touch matte black. I want it to be a little bit. Can I make a better matte black? Okay,
so
I tried to.
Not out of line for most shafts.
Yeah, if you want to step up and go to like that rainbow finish in Alpena, it goes a little north of that, obviously, because now we're getting into some cost. Rome matte black, we're going to hit that $300 mark, which people are pretty.
That's not crazy.
Familiar with. And then with the upper level looks, sometimes those colorways will go $450 to $500.
It's not insane. I mean, there's $900 shafts out there, $1,000 shafts. Some of them for a reason, some of them for marketing, I think. But
right place, right time. Sometimes. Our Velix Arcane and Velix Mansion, that's more kind of the think tank shafts, which might form into a line that becomes standard. But that's where it's like, okay, I'm going to flex.
Those are Skunk Works stuff,
yeah, definitely.
Playing around with a bunch of stuff and see what sticks, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm sadly still a pen and paper guy. It drives my fiance just nuts. But yeah, so that's a lot of that stuff is literally your old school Skunk Works are drawn on paper.
I can't argue with that. There's a rumor that most of the putting studios were drawn on napkins at some point. It's actually true.
Absolutely. So I've got my backpack with me here. If I dumped it out, you'll see a bunch of tri-folded pieces of paper that you'll find all over my house and car and all that stuff. But yeah, that's the Skunk Works where it's there are some prices where we're like, okay, we'll do it, see if there's a market for it, and see if it works. Where we get into a lot of the different multi-materials and hopefully things people haven't seen before or our take on some really great products.
Well, we should try that fun project that we were kind of spitballing earlier. Mark's got a shaft that he kind of likes, and we'd like to replicate that somehow, and then we can have you.
It's no longer available, and I love the shaft. I got like 4 or 5 of the head pros around the area like it, and it'd be fun to play around and see if we can make something.
Replicate
like
it. Do a Cool Clubs Blue, something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like as we were doing that, we talking about that. I'm like,
okay, you got notes and pieces of paper.
We're ready to go. The whole company pretty much rides on this. So
let's hope there's not a fire anywhere.
If I put it in the wrong pocket, we're pretty well done. But that's the kind of stuff we'd like to do. How do you do that as a company and stay viable and all that stuff? Well,
maybe we'll do it because we've measured some of your shafts on our S3 machine, but we haven't done all of them actually, and we're just rebuilding and changing the machine a little bit. But after we've done a bunch of them and kind of tested them all, it'd be great to have you back on and pull up the individual shafts and say, who does this one fit and why? And it'd be kind of a fun discussion at some point in time.
And even some things that I think, at least in my previous stops, we didn't do well enough is, you guys are on the ground floor and have so much ground floor data more than you've forgotten more than we'll ever know when we're in the shop and we're in the lab. It's like, wait, it needs to be. This is what we need. Here's what our players need.
It's interesting. We actually use our database of all our fittings and stuff. We do so many fittings. We actually started like data mining that stuff. So you can pull up, all the people last year that we fit that were 70 miles an hour with the driver. Which drivers did they cap? Which shafts did they pick, and which heads did they pick, and who likes what? And over time, that gives us pretty good information. So interesting to see even what color shafts people like, certain age groups or whatever.
Yeah, we can build a full swing profile. We're basically trying to build up. If someone does hits up on it and inside out 3 degrees at 80 miles an hour, what did they end up with? And then we can try and track that back, and maybe we can do what you're saying and produce something for that player rather than find something that exists for that player.
Yeah, and Jack and I were even talking a little bit about it's when we were in the bay yesterday where it's like and Mark with the putting with the young man that was in here. It's like you're actually making technical improvements on the player sometimes through the fitting process. And in other sports, again, I'm real tied to tennis. We have a Velix Tennis Academy that does really well, and we're keen into athlete performance. It's like, how do we do who are the coaches, academies that are producing great players technically and physically? Can we marry with them so it's not like on the afterthought a kid comes in here and it's like, okay, now let's teach you how to putt based on the science of what's happening. Like how do we on the science of your fitting, can we be more on the front end and say, okay, these are the players that are the future. These are the players that are developing. Let's get them, not changing their swing to fit equipment, but yeah, let's marry all these things from an early age.
Start looking at how they swing and how they load the club and stuff, and as all this, kinetics, and we got all kinds of equipment now to measure. Launch monitors have come a long way. We can measure all kinds of details.
Well, maybe
when we start looking at that and finding out how people play, that's the trick, is trying to match those swing styles and types to certain shafts.
Yeah, and
over time you figure that out. It just takes a lot of research.
And does the coach out there that's producing great players, does he know your data, right?
Yeah.
And you sometimes a lot of coaches fight it, right? It's like, well, no, don't fight it. Use this as a resource.
Yeah.
Build your player with great equipment and great equipment advantages. Hey, it's good job security, man. Your player's going to play better. We're good there. And then you're making those swing changes. So 6 months from now or 3 months from now, get back in here. Let's make those adjustments, whether they're a quick adjustment.
Especially really good juniors that are growing. I mean, they got to be looked at fitting wise pretty often. They grow so much and they change so quickly.
Some good stuff in Australia is we had a good camp in on the Gold Coast there with some guys at an academy, and these kids were coming in young, and it's like, well, they're almost too young to fit. But we had some product. We had some real lightweight, flexible golf shafts, and we had some good junior heads. And then they kind of stuck with us all the way through. And I truly think that their improvement was probably quicker, because they're not accounting for bad heavy golf equipment or stiff golf equipment. So they're not making a swing that's trying to react to that. They can make a good golf swing. So I think it's really important to bring that through so that you're not reacting to something that's already gone on.
Well, I'll ask you guys too, because again, like I said, you're on the ground floor of a lot of golf improvement. Do you feel like with your data that you can kind of see the markers for future great players? Because there are
probably some,
there are probably some where it's like we look at whether it be ball speed markers and
obviously we the only school we're in is IMG Academy, which is probably the premier in the country.
Sure.
But having that there and having those students that go through the IMG Academy, be able to go get their clubs checked all the time, and as they get stronger, change things, and that's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
You got the 12-year-old kid that's playing with clubs, and he's still playing the same clubs, and he grows 6 inches and gains 20 pounds, and he's actually hurting himself. So you really at that level you need to keep up with the equipment, because their swings and everything changes so quickly.
I mean, we factored an elite junior prospect. I mean, that family's going to put in $300,000 to $450,000 oftentimes, and sometimes that's shy. Sometimes you can do it for less if you get the right situation, the right coach, but sometimes it's north of that, going after either the scholarship or a true pro future. To not have the component of
so competitive now, you have to get everything right. So
absolutely, the
margins, training, you got to have the right teachers, you got to have the right equipment, you got to have mental game, everything's got to be done.
Education on equipment too. Lots of people,
100%.
They don't get there, and then someone says, "Oh, try this," and it's like, "Wow, why haven't I done this before?" And then they don't know anything about it, and then, especially going through a college, the college might be sponsored by someone, and then all of a sudden they're forced to play this equipment. They don't get an opinion on it. They don't get feel. They have to make that work, and a coach might, is in the same system and doesn't say, "Hey, let's try something else." So once you start learning about equipment, how big of effect it can have on your game and feel and touch, and just knowing that going forward, if you're going to be a good player, is really good to be able to shut the door and say, "Hey, I don't need to go down that avenue. Been there, done that, got a t-shirt. Like, I know what's good for me, or at least I know some of the patterns that are good for me," and we stay in that wheelhouse.
So how do we do that? Right?
How do we
get your data?
I think there's different levels, obviously. If you're a recreational golfer and you get fit every couple of years or whatever, that's fine.
That's great.
If you're really want to be a tour player, you better start early, doing the same stuff they do, testing stuff all the time, tweaking things, and really dialing it in all the way along the way. And like I said, as juniors and stuff, that's more difficult than it is for tour players, because their swings and body change much more rapidly. But not needed for everybody by any means. But you just don't want to hurt somebody by playing golf. I've seen actually one of the worst things. I had a kid in here a couple of years ago. I think he was 15 or something. And he's swinging a 6-iron at 106 miles an hour. I'm thinking, wow. Yeah. That guy can move it. And he went over to go and hit his driver, and he gets his driver out. I'm like, that's going to be 120 plus. And the guy's only 15 years old, and he was swinging his driver at like 109. I'm like, how is that possible? Well, you measure his driver, and it's like, ladies flex. And so he learned how to find the ball by slowing his swing down.
Sure.
You don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
With kids and stuff, you want them to swing as fast as they can.
Absolutely.
Because you can't, once you lose the speed, you don't get it back.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's really important. The shafts are, if anything, for kids too stiff. The last thing you want them to swing slow and swing down.
Yeah, I had a conversation with one of my fellow coaches.
Misfitting can really hurt somebody.
It's same, technique wise, where we had some players that were in the tennis world playing something that probably wasn't game improvement enough in our world, if we call it that, and there's a lot of strategy coaching. I'm like, hey, how long is it going to teach you to like, you worked on a guy's putting, and in 20 minutes he can see an impact, right? It's like, you can really do that. So, well, we can teach that great coaches and can teach that in a fairly short amount of time. Now, that's really dumbing it down. I apologize to the great coaches that take years to build a player. But it's like the physical aspect, you're not going to get elite ball speed, elite swing speed. That's not, you can't do that in 20 minutes. That's years upon, and they do have to do that at a long time. So, putting training wheels on it to fit equipment is a terrible thing. So, finding a way to get and maybe it's not even elite juniors. Maybe it is, somebody that just wants elite improvement and is doing the right things, physically and technically and at whatever age, right? Whatever age.
At the elite level, everything has to be done correctly.
Yeah. and even just knowing, from you guys knowing the markers, then it, trickles to me where it's like, okay, here are the markers for the next level of performance for this style of player. How do we make something that continues to fit them? For me, I want to keep them in the same line over and over. But how do we do that and marriage that? And it's something that I wrestle with, and I love to tackle those problems. And that's what we want Velix to be, whether it's Velix on the sports performance side, on the golf side, on the tennis side, whatever other sport that's out there that might be.
Lost our lights. It happens.
They come.
It makes it interesting.
I'm way better at low light.
Well, you went over your time, is what it is.
That's fine too.
We ran out of money for lightsing, so it's back on again. But before we let you go, we've obviously talked about two main ones, and you've got the mansion. So what's new coming from Velix that we are waiting to see?
Well, one thing, kind of.
When do you launch, and what's the new launch? And what can't you say?
I mentioned my Tesla love, and I am a fanboy. I'll admit that. Anyway, we got a couple of never go back. I like this idea of with Alpena, and some people know and some don't. It's gone through improvements slowly, right? So we've it's the same line. They're comfortable with it, but we've constantly worked to improve it through the years. So it's not the same one with new paint. It's not the same one with the same paint. It actually the 2022 version is
still
slightly
BMW
better.
320, but it's a year later.
And I can say, okay, we're not going to put a new year on it. One of the things that just, I hated in my different stops was, okay, it's November, we got to do the November launch, and then we have to have something for PGA show, and it's like, well.
So you basically launch when you're ready to launch.
Yeah, it's like, well, there have been plenty of times in my career where I'm like, wait, nothing's ready. Right. I mean, I won't tell you one of them. I'll tell you, off microphone. I mean, there's one of the launches that sold a lot of shafts where it was last minute. We hadn't produced anything that was worth it, and it was like, God, corner of my office, I've got something that kind of looks hokey from way back that we'd already considered a fail. I had a bunch of durability problems, had a bunch of problems. Like, God, I need something for these different launch windows, and so we just
ran with it.
We just ran with it, slapped some paint, and like, okay, okay, let's do it. And I have a feeling you've sold a lot of them, and we sold a lot of them, and that's wonderful. But
sometimes you throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and some things stick, right?
Sometimes those
if you don't throw stuff against the wall and try it.
Yeah, sometimes those become great success stories.
I've definitely been accused of trying way too many things.
So just
you don't find the good ones unless you try them.
And to be honest, that's probably to the detriment of Velix, the golf brand, is not having, we're not going to launch every November and every January or whatever the standard launch windows is. It's kind of and I told my partners that, and they're like, yeah, really? But we kind of do the same thing luckily on the tennis side with strings and rackets. It's like, when they're good, we'll go. So
I think retailers and consumers are almost sick of year cycles. I don't know anyone that loves the new driver coming out. People that are completely addicted. Oh, great! It's a new driver coming out. Mm-hmm. I think every 2 years is kind of a nice cycle for most people. It's exciting that they've got 2 years of technology built up. They've used their product. It's kind of worn out a little bit. I think that when it gets cycled so quickly, people get, oh well, if I got bad technology, is a year all that things last, and you pay good money for these things. So, I don't knock you for waiting for something good to come along and before you put it on the market. I think that's a good idea.
We get knocked for it, and I get that because again, we do want retail consumers to come in, but I'm like, yeah, well, want it to be good. I want it to be, and there have been plenty of times where I've put a lot of time into a product, and at the end it's just like,
if it's not broke, don't fix it.
yeah. There are
You can
times
tweak it
where,
a little bit though.
yeah, there are
new
times
paint
where
job.
it's like, yeah. But, that's part of it too. I want to, I love the NBA, the basketball shoe model, right? Where it's like, yeah, I want Kobe 7s. So like Kobe 7s, that was like 2013 or 2012, but.
Awesome.
But they're in the Grinch colorway.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
if you can find them, you can get them. It's like, oh, you got the black and whites, and I love that world, and I want to do that a little bit more going forward. So we will do that kind of a little more limited run, which is what was always the most fun for me. And then we are going to do some new models. There'll be some new refreshes to what started as Velix Mansion. Where we played around a little bit with graphene and different ways of using that.
Yeah, graphene's been talked about for quite a bit, and it's a really cool material.
Amazing.
Obviously, it's got
Amazing.
unbelievable potential, but no one's really scratched the surface of what it potentially.
This
You want to talk to us a little bit because people have heard the name,
Yeah.
and heard of graphene.
It's running a real risk, and I think you'll know this as well as anybody. You guys will. Some of the times we'd latch onto a technology or a material, and the first one to market rushes it to market
Right.
and uses it poorly, and then that
That's probably
name
the case here,
yeah, and I think it unfortunately might have ruined graphene, which
Right.
is phenomenal. It's what
Millions of uses, not just for golf chassis.
200, 300 times stronger than steel. I mean, you look at it
Molecule thick.
at the molecular
stuff.
level. I mean, it's so organized. This is, it makes typical carbon look kind of sloppy at times,
Right.
where it's like, wow, there's
We haven't used that entirely yet in the golf shafts. I think
Yeah.
eventually that'll come around.
Well, it reminds me of, when we did things like liquid crystal polymer. There's some things where there's some great applications for liquid crystal that people just kind of rushed, and it's like then carbon nanotubes, right?
Right.
What year was it where we were hot on carbon
everything's,
nanotubes
yeah.
for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we weren't really using them. We're using it as an epoxy additive and
Yeah.
some nanotube
There's a
dust.
little smoke and mirrors there.
Yeah, and it's like, well, wait, there's great applications
Graphene's
here.
terrific, but you grind it all up and mix it into the paint. And it doesn't do anything.
And there were some products where, there's some products where some people hit it, and it's like, wow, this feels terrible. And it's like, so nanotubes are no. That's great in theory.
Use it for the right thing.
And so graphene. There's been some things again. Tennis we had it happen, golf we had it happen, where some people's like, oh, let's throw the graphene word out there. Let's give it a graphene type nickname, and tell them that's what it is. And it's like, gosh, dang it, we might have just cut our knees off on what could be some phenomenal things.
We'll see. I'm sure it'll pop up again.
Well, yeah, we're working on it, and we know some other people are too, and
I've known a few.
That's the question is like when it comes out, is it going to be a tree falling in the forest? Because the people that got out there first kind of ding the name, and that just we got to find a way to, disassociate. This is great technology. This is great material. With Mansion, we did some things in there. We used it in two ways. One was with the epoxy and kind of experimenting there. One was actually a different way in the shaft that we're gonna try to work on.
Tell me later after you shoot.
Yeah. There's some questions for how we apply that. But yeah, it's like, okay, let's use it differently. But again, we do it. Is it going to be? We've heard about. I had something graphene 5 years ago, and it was. Oh man, that's so. There are some things out there that we think are pretty awesome. There's a couple of different materials that again we kind of found from in the TPU world and the some of the foams and polymers from other sports worlds that we're kind of we love to experiment with. That we're like, yeah, this is really cool.
Try a few thousand different types and find one or two that'll work.
yeah, exactly. So we're always our Skunk Works might be more alive than the standard sometimes, where it's like, we're doing so much of that. When we find something, we'll bring it to market, and we'll be really excited about it, I'm sure.
Cool.
So
Well, we look forward to looking at more of your stuff, and we're certainly going to be giving it a try in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's do
You got me the
part.
paint job, so
Yeah.
I've got to give it a try and run it through S3 and see what we find out.
We'll do part 2. We'll review some of your golf shafts.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Mark's project or your co-project, and we'll see if that sticks.
yeah, is that gonna be more of a scolding in round 2?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, it's going to be that didn't work. Let's try again.
Yeah. Dang it, none of it works.
Thanks for coming out. I appreciate your
Thank
time.
you guys. Thanks
Really
for
good to
having
see
me.
you.
Always great to see you guys.
Thanks a lot.